Let's create a Kente-inspired weaving using paper and paint. The first step for our paper weaving is to prepare the warp on our paper loom. You can use a few different measuring tools like pre-cut measuring guides or a ruler. I am going to be using a 3/4 inch measuring guide or 3/4 inch measuring guide. Taking that, I'm going to line that up to the edge of the shorter edge of the paper and use my pencil to make a line at the top and bottom. So do the same thing for the top of the paper, then turn it around or move to the other side and do it for the bottom of the paper. After you've done this, you're going to turn your paper so that it is vertical and make your warp lines. So turn it vertically, line up the edge of your measuring guide to the edge of the paper, and draw your pencil line. As you make each new line, align the guide up with your pencil and move over and draw another line. Keep doing this until you've completed all the lines all the way across your paper. Now that you've drawn all of your lines, it's time to actually cut the slits in the paper. There are two ways you can do this. One is to have an adult or the teacher use an X-Acto blade and a straight edge to cut the lines, but if you are a student doing this, the safer way is to fold your paper and use scissors. So we're going to fold our paper in half so that the bottom and the top edge are touching and lined up together. And then very carefully, we're going to fold it down so that it creases. And now use our scissors to cut along the vertical lines that we drew. And as we cut this, it's going to cut on both sides of the paper, but don't go all the way or you'll cut the whole strip off. So stop at that horizontal line that you made at the edge of the paper. Do that for all of your lines and then open it up. Once you've opened up your paper, you can now see that you can fit your fingers in between and you should have your loom ready to go with your warp pieces. Now it's time to add the weft. The weft goes in the opposite direction of the warp. So the warp goes up and down or vertically. The weft goes from left to right or horizontally. You're going to go over and under, alternating each of your pieces. So I have my yellow paper here. I went over and then under until I get all the way across. And then I'm going to wiggle it up ever so gently so that it goes all the way up to the top of the paper and stays in place. For my second weft paper, I'm using a different color so that I can create a pattern. But I also have to now go in the opposite direction of the paper before it. So the paper before it started over. This one's going to start under. Then it's going to go over, under, over, under, over, under until it gets all the way to the end. And I'm going to wiggle it up so that it's right underneath my first paper. My third piece is again a different color, and now I'm going in the opposite direction of that white piece. So that one went under, this one goes over. Over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under until it gets all the way to the end and then wiggle it up so that it goes right underneath the piece before it. You're going to do this for the entire paper until you can't fit any more new weft strips. By the way, did you know that this simple weaving pattern is called the tabby weave? It is one of the most basic weaving patterns that you can learn as a beginning weaver. Now that I've woven in all of my weft pieces, I'm taking a look at my paper and noticing that I have a little bit of extra space at the bottom. So I am going through all of the pieces that I've done and moving them and adjusting them just a little bit just to space them out. You might not need to do this and that's okay, but if you think you should do it, now is the time. For this next step, you're going to need some glue to secure your pieces in place. Flip it over to the back, whichever side you want to be the back, and fold over any of the pieces that went beyond the edge of your paper. Be very careful that you don't fold them and break them. Just fold them carefully so that they are not sticking out anymore. After you've already folded one side, you might want to glue those pieces into place before you fold the other side. If so, use a little bit of glue to hold it down. For some of the pieces, you might have to glue the folded area and then underneath the folded area where it touches your base paper. Now that I've firmly pressed on the glued down pieces, it's time to start on the other side while I fold over anything that was extending past the edge and glue them down in the exact same way. Now flip your weaving back over so that you are looking at the front side. It's time to add some unique and interesting details using some stamping methods. We're going to be using tempera paint, and I have all of the colors to choose from, but you might only have a few colors. And I'm using a piece of cut cardboard, and later on I'm also going to be using the eraser end of a pencil. So let's go ahead and add some amazing patterns to some of the squares on our weaving. You might also want to leave some of the squares without any patterns so that your eye has a place to rest. What kind of patterns can you make using a cardboard piece and a pencil eraser to make designs? I've been using the cardboard piece in lots of different ways to make different shapes, patterns, and designs. You can also turn your paper if it's easier for you to make your marks. Sometimes that's better so that you don't smudge the wet paint. Now I'm going to start using that eraser end of a pencil to make some round marks. What kind of marks can you make, or can you combine with the cardboard marks to make some new designs? Remember to wipe off that eraser tip when you're done. You don't want to accidentally get paint all over your hands the next time you grab this pencil. Here's a little tip in case your cardboard piece starts to fall apart on the end. You can always grab some scissors and cut off the end, and then you get a nice crisp, clean piece to use for stamping. When you're done stamping, let the paint dry completely. And then you can decide if you want to leave your weaving the way it is, or if you want to glue it onto another color paper to make a nice border.